Hey everyone, Samantha Hildebrandt here with Type 1 Tribe. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about food pairings and what foods you can pair together to lessen that blood sugar spike. So let's go. As I've mentioned before, carbs are necessary for body's energy. Absolutely. But our blood sugar doesn't love carbs in general. They don't love us eating a lot of carbs. They don't like us eating processed carbs. And so there are things that we can do, which is great news. There are things that we can do to lessen that blood sugar spike. We don't see this massive spike of our blood sugar going up to 200, 300, 400. There are a lot of cool things that we can do to make it just a tiny little bump, which is what we need for energy, but still have it ending up back in that ideal range that we want to be. So first off, carbs are not the enemy. You can still eat carbs, especially if you're a type 1 diabetic. We have insulin, and so you are still able to eat carbs. And especially if you're somebody that's an athlete and you're constantly moving and working out and sweating and burning energy and fat, well, then you probably are going to need a little bit more carbs than the average person that's maybe just going about their day, not doing a ton of activity. So carbs are not the enemy, and it really does give us an energy source where we can get energy from other types of food as well, but we get most of it from carbs. So first and foremost, you can still absolutely eat carbs. I think the reason that blood sugars hate carbs is really just when, we're only eating carbs, right? Like we're just loading up on carbs and not eating any other nutrients. That is when our blood sugar is like, whoa, hold up, like this is not okay. And then we see that blood sugar spike. Now, there's also a lot going on, I feel like, in the world with nutrition right now and how we can make people healthier and how we can make the food system healthier and all of that. And there's a lot of stuff happening in our food system currently, and we need to be making better decisions on our own because we can't really trust the food manufacturers these days to give us the best, healthiest options. They tend to hide things in some of our foods. And so that's why it's really, really important to be eating whole natural foods, things that come from an animal or things that come from the ground is really what we should be focusing on as human beings. It's really important to focus on whole foods and minimize our processed foods and highly processed foods. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't eat a chip here and there. However, if you're eating chips every single day, all day long, that's not going to be a great option for our blood sugar. But the good news is there are pairings that we can do and we can put in our meals to make that blood sugar spike lower and not as much of a like massive incline. We can kind of make it more of like just a little spike there. And so what can we do? Well, as we know, carbs do tend to spike blood sugar. So what can we pair with a carb that will lessen that spike? Well, it's funny because when I was first diagnosed, I knew nothing about nutrition, okay? Like absolutely nothing. I didn't even barely know what a carb was. But over time, just through trial and error, I learned there are certain nutrients that can really, really help with your blood sugar. The number one being protein. Protein is like a magical thing in this world, and it's magical for your blood sugars. So I highly recommend always adding protein to every single meal that you are eating. Any type of protein is great. So it can be from an animal or it can be from a plant. However, I do recommend it coming from an animal because I personally see better blood sugars if I am choosing my protein from a meat source. So anything like chicken, turkey, beef, steak, anything like that, it will help your blood sugars. You can also have plant-based protein. So I personally love my yogurt bowls, as you all know. And so I eat whole milk, plain yogurt, which has a lot of protein, which is great, but that is considered a plant protein. So that does not have any animal protein in it. It's all plant protein. And then of course, I add nuts as my granola to my yogurt, and that is also a plant protein. I personally try to add protein to every single thing I eat. It does get kind of tough with snacks, in my opinion, to always be adding protein because sometimes I just want like a handful of chips, to be honest. And sometimes that's really hard to find a way to also pair protein with that. However, if you can find a snack that you can pair protein with, or just one that's fully protein, like hard-boiled eggs, that would be such a great snack for you to eat. But even for every meal, I highly recommend adding some type of protein with your meal. Now, if you were like me when I was first diagnosed, somebody said, "Hey, Samantha, add protein to your meal." I would be like, "Okay, first off, what is protein?" If someone could explain this to me. And I really don't think you need to know like I said, the scientific side of protein. I just think you need to know when to spot protein. So protein is pretty much anything from an animal. So like I mentioned earlier, pork, chicken, turkey, fish, steak, anything like that. Okay. So animal protein is something that you could add to a meal. And then plant protein, this is, I think, harder to spot, but yogurt is great. Cheese is great. Peanut butter has protein. Nuts have protein. So those are all plant-based ideas that you can add to a meal. Now, also, there's a little trick that you can do if you are looking to lessen that blood sugar spike. So, first step is just add protein to your meal. Second step, if you eat the protein first, before you eat the carbs, before you eat anything else on your plate, if you eat the protein first, you will see a better blood sugar number, or you would see a better, maybe lower spike, something that's not going crazy. You will have better results with your blood sugar if you eat the protein first. Now, I know sometimes that's hard because maybe you're like eating a burger and fries and a salad. It's like, well, so I have to eat the meat first without the bread. You know, it gets confusing. But if you're eating a plate, let's say you have just chicken breast that's, seasoned, and then you have maybe sweet potatoes on the side, and then some green beans. I personally would recommend eating the chicken first. That will help your blood sugar with that blood sugar spike. And then same with plant-based protein. You can always do a handful of nuts before you eat something to help lessen that blood sugar spike. So that's a cool little tip and a cool little trick that you can do if you're, out in public and you're like, "Holy crap, this meal has a lot of carbs. Like, what can I do here?" One, always pair with protein, and two, try to eat the protein first. So that is a great tip for you to follow. Okay, so what other nutrients can we add to our plate that will help lessen that blood sugar spike? Fiber. Fiber is something that we should be adding to every single meal if we are eating carbs. Now, this is obviously, I think, a harder one to spot than protein. So it's like, okay, what has fiber in it? And once again, you don't really need to know like the scientific side. You just need to know when to spot a food that has a lot of fiber. So for some examples, some foods that you could add to a plate that have fiber would be broccoli. Broccoli has a good amount of fiber. You could add sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes have a good amount of fiber. Any type of lentil you could add, beans, chickpeas, those all have fiber included in them. Be careful with chickpeas though, because there are a decent amount of carbs in them as well. So it's just one you have to be careful with if you're eating a ton of chickpeas. Black beans, refried beans, any type of beans. I actually, every time I have like a Mexican bowl, I always add beans if I'm eating rice because beans are an awesome source of fiber. So you can always throw in some beans. You can also do avocado. That is a great source of fiber. Chia seeds. Chia seeds are awesome that you can just like top to something. I even actually top it on my daughter who's 1 year old. I top it on her food because I'm like, you know what? This is a great source of protein. This is a great source of fiber. It's just great overall. Chia seeds are great. You should have them in your pantry at all times just to, put on top of all your food. You can top it on your yogurt bowls, which is really, really good. I mean, you can literally put it on anything. So just, add a little bit to your meal, and that will be an awesome source of fiber. Okay, so the final nutrient that I want you to focus on for your plate. So if you're making a plate, you have to have that protein, you have to have the fiber, and the last one is fat. You need to have fat on your plate. And sometimes, people look at me like, "Fat? That's not good, Samantha. How is adding fat to your plate good?" Fat will help lessen that blood sugar spike. And when I say fat, I mean healthy fats, good fats. And once again, if you were like me before that had no idea what that even meant, A healthy fat would be nuts, avocados, eggs, flax seeds, right? Flax seeds are similar to chia seeds, so something that you can just top on your meal. Olive oil. Olive oil is a great source of fat, healthy fats. Peanut butter. But once again, I think I've mentioned this before, but like make sure that if you're choosing a peanut butter, there's no added sugar, added oil, or added junk to that. That's just unnecessary. Peanut butter is good as it is. So look for all natural peanut butter, but that is a great source of fat. Even adding in like if you're looking for a dessert, like dark chocolate has a great amount of healthy fat. So these are just ideas that of things that you can add to your plate that will help lessen that blood sugar spike if you're eating a lot of carbs. So if you are making a plate and you're a diabetic and you're like, okay, how can I eat this meal but just not see that blood sugar spike? Well, I highly recommend adding carbs, protein, fiber, and fat to your meal. Now, I listed some examples here, but there are plenty more. So if you're like, oh gosh, I don't really know, like what do I make? You can Google these things, you guys. And now that we all have our phones like on us all the time, you can easily just like pull out your phone, search what you can eat really quick. That will be a good source of a blood sugar friendly meal. It's really, really important if you are especially a type 2 diabetic to be following blood sugar friendly meals because you may or may not be on insulin. For people that have insulin, yes, we can probably eat more carbs, but I still highly recommend following a blood sugar friendly meal because then you don't have to worry about those blood sugar spikes and the roller coasters. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes the blood sugar roller coasters. It's just terrible. So, eating a blood sugar friendly meal that includes protein, fat, and fiber will totally be better off for your blood sugars, for your overall health, for your mental clarity, for, I mean, literally everything. Okay. Everything. So if you have any questions about pairings and what you can do for your blood sugar and how to just make your blood sugar better, see a lower A1C, see lower blood sugar numbers overall, definitely, definitely, definitely include the protein, fiber, and fat to all of your meals. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you all next week in our next video. Bye.